If you have ever thought about starting a podcast, using the Podcorn platform is a must. Podcorn is a marketplace that connects podcasters to amazing sponsorship opportunities and really allows you as the host to maintain creative freedom and full control of your show. Now, I personally use the platform, and I know that Podcorn helps keep you protected and compensated for all of the work that you do. Make sure to click the link in my show notes to get started with Podcorn today. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Financially Free Journey podcast. And I'm your host, Courtney Dyer, and I'm very excited for today's guest. I'm bringing on a fellow podcaster, and her name is Tiffany Aliche, and she's better known as The Budgetnista. And she is an award-winning teacher and best-selling author, and her book, Get Good with Money, 10 Simple Steps to Becoming Financially Whole, is hot and it's on Amazon. It's a bestseller, and she has courses. She has the whole gamut of financial resources and is just a top-notch financial educator. So I'm so excited to bring her onto the show today and to be able to introduce her to you guys, to be able to talk about her concepts and the way that she's been able to build such a good relationship with money. Through her company, The Budgetnista, Tiffany has created a financial movement that has really helped over, get this, 1 million women worldwide collectively save more than $200 million and to pay off over $100 million in debt. I mean, those are some huge numbers. So to me, guys, Tiffany is an expert. She really knows what she's talking about because she has helped so many people pay off tremendous amounts of debt and really live their best life. And she has actually helped people purchase homes and transform the way that they think about their finances in general. And these women that she helped, they participate in this global movement and they really call themselves dream catchers. And Tiffany credits her experience as a preschool teacher for 10 years in New Jersey for really defining her purposes behind the Budgetnista education and brand. In 2019, Tiffany actually transformed her commitment into legislation when she partnered with an assemblywoman, Angela McKnight, to write a bill that'll later be signed into law. And this law made it mandatory for financial education to be integrated into all middle schools in the state of New Jersey. Now, this is someone who puts their money where their mouth is. And so I'd like to be able to give a warm welcome to Tiffany. Tiffany, welcome to the program. All right. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for joining today. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Courtney. How are you?
I am so excited to be talking to you. And I just told this to Tiffany, guys, but I have to share it with you as well. I was like fangirling after reading all of her amazing accomplishments. I mean, you have done a lot in the personal finance space. And so you really are an expert at what you do and the people that you help. And I can already tell you're such a genuine person. And so I'm excited for you to be here. I want to go back to the origin of Tiffany. Like, how did you create such a passion around what you do? And I know that you're really focused in on educating women. So talk to us about how that all started for you.
So I think education was something I just grew into. I feel like every little girl wanted to be a teacher. I just never grew out of it.
Yeah.
If you let my sisters tell it, I was bossy. They're like, oh, Tiffany was always telling somebody what to do.
Yeah. It's a good quality, actually.
I know. I'm one of 5 girls, and we just grew up learning about personal finance from my parents, because my father has 2 degrees in finance and 1 in economics, and my mom, really taking the helm to raise 5 girls. I mean, you have to be on your grind when it comes to your finances. So I feel like from my father, we got kind of like the textbook version, like this is how you budget and save. And my mom, we would go food shopping with her and we would see her navigate like, oh, why are we going to the bakery instead of getting bread from the supermarket? And she's like, well, it's less money here. And you're just like learning or going clothes shopping and understanding like, okay, this is why we shop here instead of here. But it was just part of everyday life. I didn't think anything was special about learning financial education at home until probably like college. And my passion kind of started with helping because my roommate used to get debt collectors calling our dorm room.
Oh
I
no.
I know. And we thought it was
Don't tell
hilarious because
me.
we were like 17.
Yeah.
So we would think like we would use it as an opportunity to prank call because they would call us and they'd be like, oh, it's Dwayne again. I'm going to put on the fake voice, so
Love
we
it.
thought, because I was 17, 18 when we started college. And so we were too immature to understand just what a big deal that was. And so it wasn't until I went home to my dad, and my parents on summer break. And I told him, he was asking me how college was. And I told him everything's great. But we keep getting these weird calls from debt collectors calling the dorm room. And he kind of perked up and said, well, tell me more. And I shared with him. And he was like, well, that's not really funny. And
that's really serious.
I know. I was like, okay. And he was like, so then I called my roommate. And he had a couple of extra questions, which she answered. And it turned out that her mom, who was a single mom, she had 2 girls, was really struggling financially and opened up credit cards in her name. And was using them the best that she could. I think her father had passed away when they were younger. So she just was having, a really hard time. And it kind of was the first time we didn't have a lot of money, my family, but there was my mom and my dad, and just to see that, like, wow, there are people out here that, although we didn't have much, I know we didn't have debt collectors calling the house, And
so it's kind of like it goes to education, right? I mean, even if you don't have a lot, if you're educated, which your parents work around it, makes it a world of difference.
Exactly. So he started to like basically tell me what to tell her. And that was like kind of the first time that I transferred knowledge. And I loved the fact to see they stopped calling. And then like kind of word got out on like our floor, because I went to a women's college, and it was like, no, go to Tiffany if you have a financial question. I'm like, I'm just going to ask my dad. They're like, well, yeah, ask him.
It's like a Dear Abby, but you're dating. It's for money.
Exactly. So I became the go-to, but I loved it. I loved seeing how people who were struggling were no longer struggling. And so I feel like that's how kind of like pre-Budgetnista began.
And Budgetnista is this huge brand. And I was just reading this before, I brought you on, but the blog and the podcast, I mean, it's multifaceted. So can you walk the listeners through what Budgetnista is? What's the mission? What's the end game for you with Budgetnista?
So Budgetnista is a financial education firm. And our mission is to provide access to women, provide financial education and access to financial education to all women, to allow them to have the capability and the confidence to live richer lives.
So why women? You got to expand on that for the listeners.
Well, I think like so many new entrepreneurs, when I first started, I said, I'm for everybody. And then I looked at my analytics and said, I'm not for everybody.
No, I'm for women. Yeah.
Yes. Because it's really, honestly, obviously I'm a woman and I've got 4 sisters. So just growing up with women. And then, but I honestly really looked and I saw that my audience was 99% women. And not that there were no guys, but there weren't as many. And that probably wouldn't have made, I probably still would have done like I'm for everyone if I had not read this study that was done by this big financial firm that said that women make up to 70% of the choices in the household, 70. So let's just say you're a stay-at-home mom, right? But still, if there's a car that you and your partner are looking to purchase, right? The likelihood, even if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're not currently working, the car purchase is really going to land on the choice of that car is going to land on you. If you hate a house, like, let's just say you're like, oh, we're looking for a new home. And because you're like, well, I'm here day to day making those decisions about what's going to be the best home for us, what's going to be the best sheets that we use. Like, mostly sometimes women, are tasked with doing a lot of the domestic things, or at least making sure that they're done. So as a result, women make so many of the financial choices. And it's really my aim, my end goal is to really help families live richer lives so they can be stable, they can be safe, and they can live in harmony with their finances. But if I'm going to do that, the best avenue to doing that is really through the women in your life.
Absolutely. It's, working in the financial industry for, over a decade, a lot of the clients that I help, whether they have low income or high income, women in particular, there seems to be a disconnect with the amount of education and maybe importance that's been placed on the fact that women do make a lot of these financial decisions. And so the confidence in being able to make decisions that you feel like are best suited for your family and your financial objectives seems to really be lacking. It's a real issue. And so I see that as well with women that I help. And so I'm so glad that you have that focus because it's so needed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. So talk to us about the law that you helped pass in New Jersey. When I read about this, I was like, she is such a boss, guys, such a boss. So, okay, tell us about the Budgetista Law.
So what happened was a friend of mine who is now an assemblywoman. When I met her, she was just my friend Angela, who used to come to my financial classes at the United Way. But when she did so much volunteer work, kind of like the community rallied around her and said, you should run for office. And she did. And she became an assemblywoman. And day one, she came to me and said, I want to affect education. And she knew, obviously, I was a teacher of financial education, but she knew I actually used to be a school teacher for over 10 years. And I have my master's in education. I used to teach preschool. And she said, what do you think is missing? And I said, honestly, Angela, there's a law in place in New Jersey for high school, which is great. You know, we're a leader in that when it comes to financial education, but it should start earlier. And so we started to work on a bill. So a bill is what happens before a law. Well, you hope a bill turns into a law. That doesn't always happen. But we worked on a bill together, worked on the language, met with educators, we met with other teachers and other stakeholders in the community to make sure we had the wording right and submitted the bill, and it was voted on. And in 2019, January, it became a law. So I call it the Budgetista Law, but technically it's called Law A1414, if you want to look it up.
Budgetista sounds better. We'll stick with Budgetista Law. Yeah.
You know, and so, but it's amazing because what the law states is that financial education must be integrated into middle schools in the state of New Jersey. And I remember they had a law signing day, which it doesn't happen for most laws. So that was awesome. Like my parents got to come and we got to literally see the law being signed by the lieutenant governor. And but what was really special was, you know, you kind of forget about it. You like my stepdaughter, she's in high school. I didn't really think anything of it until like a few months later, I was at my friend's house around the corner. Her name is Rihanna, and she's got a daughter named Olivia that's in middle school. And her daughter calls me Auntie Tiffany. And she said, Auntie Tiffany, can you help me with my homework? Because she knows I used to be a teacher. So I always often help her with her homework. And I said, sure. So I'm helping her with her homework. And I was like, Olivia, you're learning about money in school? You're learning about money in school?
It's the Budgetista Law.
Yes. I couldn't believe it. I was like tearing up because I thought, wow, Olivia's getting financial education in school because something her Aunt Tiffany worked on. And so just to think how many Olivias out there, you know, and how many, you know, how many Jordans and Bryans and, you know, so it just feels really good knowing that that's in place. Because what I really want to do is I want to go back for elementary school because I think it could start even sooner, age appropriate financial education.
A relationship with money has to start. Yeah, I talk about this all the time, but like my oldest is 8, right? He's only in 2nd grade, but when I sit down and I do the bills, I'm like, come here, Garrett, let's look at this together. Because the more we familiarize our children and our youth in general with talking about money, it's not taboo, right? And I say this all the time. It's like politics, sex, and money. It's like off the table in a lot of families or within your friends or your communities. But if we really make it something that's familiar and we talk about often, people will be much better suited to make really good financial decisions in the future.
I agree.
It's just fantastic to know that you helped impact that for an entire state. I mean, I'm just like, we need to do that for the whole, should we just work on this for the entire country? I think that's the goal, baby, huh?
Yeah, it would be. Right now, there are 21 states that have some sort of financial literacy integrated into their school system by law. So I would love that, honestly. I don't know how to do it, but I would love that.
The fact that it's not standard just across the country is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
You probably see that too. It's like, why? Why is that not something? And money impacts us whether we like it or not. It doesn't matter what you do with your life, you're impacted by it. And the fact that it's not a standard curriculum, but you know, algebra and chemistry it's astounding to me. It really is. Oh my gosh. So, okay. Let's talk about the book. I have to know more about the book. It's Get Good with Money, just came out. What inspired the book? And tell the listeners a little bit about what they can expect when they read it.
So I wrote Get Good with Money because I was noticing that my audience, I would teach a credit lesson and I would see all these people say, oh my goodness, thank you so much, Tiffany. The next few months, my credit score raised. Great. I would teach a savings lesson. Oh my goodness, I'm saving. Great. But then I noticed that like the credit person was not saving and the saving person was not fixing their credit. And then the budget person was not investing. The investment person didn't have insurance. And the teacher in me was getting anxiety because, it's like, it's almost like, okay, I did a really good job with teaching shapes, but nobody knows their colors.
They go hand in hand.
Yes, exactly. Literally.
Do you experience digital eye strain from too much blue light exposure from digital screens? Baxter Blue glasses are not your average frames. These blue light lenses filter 80% of the highest energy blue light, and it eliminates 99% of glare. The past year, guys, we have all been glued to our devices more than ever. Our exposure to digital light has soared, and our eyes and our sleep are really suffering as a result. Baxter Blue is also a force for good and provides a pair of reading glasses for someone in need for every pair sold. This is eyewear built for our digital age, and Baxter Blue is giving our listeners 10% off your next purchase of blue light, sleep, or kids glasses. Just click the link in our show notes and your exclusive discount will be there. This is a sign that you've been waiting for, guys, for you to invest in blue light glasses. We know that you're going to love Baxter glasses, and we know that you will feel the difference.
That's exactly what it was, that they were missing key components of their financial education that goes hand in hand. And it worried me because I felt like I was sending my students out into the world unprepared. And so I said, okay, well, what are the core tenets that people should have? And there are 10 of them. It's budgeting, savings, debt, credit, learning to earn, investing for both retirement and wealth. It is insurance, it's net worth, it's your professional financial team, and it's estate planning. These are the 10 components that go hand in hand. And I thought, okay, can I create a guide that takes you through, you start with the basics, budgeting, and then takes you all the way through to the more complex components like estate planning. Can I create a step-by-step guide as only a teacher could that really works you through lesson by lesson, giving you homework along the way and the tools and the resources? And so that's how Get Good with Money came about. The subtitle is 10 Simple Steps to Becoming Financially Whole. And that's what I'm wanting, financial wholeness for everyone, because it is attainable and achievable for everyone. Unlike financial freedom, where everyone's not going to reach financial freedom, but literally, Courtney, everybody can achieve financial wholeness.
Absolutely. Again, it's the end game, right? For everybody to feel educated and confident. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what your income level is, what your economic background is. Mm-hmm. You can read a book like Get Good with Money. Mm-hmm. You can listen to these 10 steps and lessons. It's the teacher coming out in you, right? Writing a curriculum, making it very simple. And when I was going through and reading the reviews and things on your book, I mean, that really seems to be a theme. It's like, it's so simple. Yes. It's easy to understand because that's something that, again, primarily with women, it seems to be very intimidating to talk about finance and to be able to make these decisions. And if we can make it simple, and it's not because women don't have the ability, we absolutely do and are so smart, but it's really, getting away from that like imposter syndrome. Yes. No, you can be, amazing. You can be an expert at this for your home and feel confident in what you do.
Exactly.
And your book does that.
And that's exactly that. Like I said, that for many women, when it comes to money, it's not a capability issue, but it is a confidence issue.
Right.
Because you told yourself it's too hard. I'm like, oh, it's too hard. You have children? You raised them? Oh, okay. It's hard. Kids are harder, right? Like,
way harder.
Right? Do you have a partner? Do you have siblings? Do you have a parent? Do you go to work? Have you figured out your perfect hair routine? I promise you, all of that is way harder than managing your money. It's just that you have made space to learn in those places. But you've told yourself money is way too hard. I'm like, you literally are raising a whole human being if you're a parent,
Right? You can do this. Yes. You can learn how to manage your money and meet your goals. Yes. And again, I love how you talk about wholeness because there's a lot of people who are really great at investing, for example, but they have not even looked at, are they underinsured for their net worth, right? With their life insurance, or do they have money that they'll be leaving to their children? Have they started a trust? Do they know how to, really protect their assets? So there's a lot, and again, those are just examples of more complex portions of being financially whole, but just because you're good at one doesn't mean that you're good at another. And I really want to point that out to the listeners, because if you feel like, you're behind, I just want people to realize you're not. Everybody is at a different part in this journey, and everybody's working towards the wholeness, portion.
And I just think too that because people sometimes think that financial freedom will cure it all, Courtney, but it won't. So I give an example, Prince, right? The artist formerly known as, we all know that he passed away, a number of years ago, but I don't know if a lot of people understand that Prince didn't have an estate plan, that he knew that he was not well. And he started texting his friends to say, this is what I want to happen to my stuff. But that is not the same as an estate plan. And as a result, he only had one surviving family member, really his sister. And so all of his money ended up going to his sister. Now, here's the thing. Is that what Prince wanted? We don't know. But also, too, Prince gave a lot of money to music programs, because he said that music saved his life and that children should have access to music, which I agree with. Now, what if his sister does not agree with that? It's no longer Prince. Exactly. She can decide whatever she wants. Now, had he had a will and a trust, he can say, hey, here's what I want to go to my sister, but here's the money I want to continue to go to these music programs I've been supporting. And so Prince was financially free. We can all agree upon that, but he was not financially whole.
Great example. Another one, Tony Hirsch, the CEO of Zappos, that just passed away. And I read an article that his will was completely written out on sticky notes, right? And this is someone who is extremely successful, same as
a billionaire,
and he didn't have a basic will. And so these examples that we're talking about, Tiff, is exactly what I want the listeners to realize is just because someone has tons of money doesn't mean that they're whole and they've done it all and they've reached the pinnacle of financial wholeness. Everybody's working. So you got to start now to make progress.
And what I really love is so I don't know if you know, but this is my first traditionally published book. I've self-published some workbooks and things before, but I kind of had in the back of my mind, because people kept saying, what if it hits the New York Times bestsellers list? I'm like, that's impossible. But it did. It was so amazing. Can you imagine? So I'll see if it's going to be 3 weeks in a row, but for 2 weeks in a row, it's been on the New York Times bestsellers list. It hit 2 lists, not just one.
Oh my God.
And then it hit number 1 on the Wall Street Journal list. It's the USA Today list, Apple's list, Amazon's list, the indie list. There's so many. It hit over 10 different lists. But what it was that it was confirmation that this holistic, fundamental approach to finance is what's missing. Because I want you to be able to buy real estate and trade options and I want you to do all of those things, but without the fundamentals, it's almost like, you jumped into high school, but you don't know how to read, write, add, subtract. And so I'm here, so as I mentioned before, Courtney, I used to be a preschool teacher. So I really feel like this is an extension of preschool teacher Tiffany is now financial preschool teacher Tiffany,
I love it. At the same base, it's the same basic level, but when you put it in the money aspect. Yes. Right? Yep. The fundamentals.
Yes, the fundamentals are so critical because from there, now you can build whatever house you want on this foundation.
Yes. Exactly. Not everybody is going to be the same, and not everybody's going to have the same financial goals, or not everybody's going to want to, invest in cryptocurrency or options or, whatever the case may be. But if you don't have this foundation laid and solid, the 10 steps, everything else is going to fall. Right. Yep. So I love that analogy because again, it's so critical to have the wholeness before you really try to skyrocket. So, okay, where can the listeners find the book? I would assume Amazon.
Everywhere. But if you go to getgoodwithmoney.com, I have listed all, sometimes people like to patronize smaller local bookstores. So you have the option to do that as well. Right. So getgoodwithmoney.com has a list of all these places where you can get the book. And there is a free toolkit that comes along with the book, whether you buy the book or not. I always believe that you don't have to spend money with me in order to get assistance. So the toolkit is also on getgoodwithmoney.com, and that's available to anyone who, whether you have the book or not, but it's a companion piece to the book.
That's fantastic. Guys, make sure that you go access that tool, because this is something we talk about all the time. In order to get better, you have to invest in your knowledge and your ability to learn about things that you want to get better at. And again, if you're listening to this podcast, getting better with your money is a goal. So go to getgoodwithmoney.com, access the free tool, invest in your knowledge. This book is amazing. The way that it's laid out. I mean, guys, it's just a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer in my opinion, Tiffany. So before we go, I want you to leave the listeners with one actionable piece of advice on how they can take action today to get better with their money.
So let's talk about how to budget without budgeting. This is something I had to do for my husband because he wasn't the best budgeter.
Yeah, there's always one in the relationship, okay?
And so one of the things that I did with him, and see if you're allowed to do this with payroll, that I said, okay, babe, because we have 4 accounts. This is what I suggest: 2 checking, 2 savings. So one of the checkings is a spending account. So like I have my own separate spending account. He has his own separate spending account. This is kind of like where you keep your adult allowance. Yes. Then we have the second checking account is a bills account. For us, it's a joint account. But if you're single, just your own bills account. So the other savings is emergency savings. So this is where you keep your emergency money, and then your goal savings. This is where you keep savings for goals, like if you want to purchase a house or car, it's safe to start investing. So 2 checking, 2 savings. So we did the math on paper, and we were very clear of how much money that he's going to get for his separate allowance. How much money is he contributing toward bills? How much money is going to our joint savings account for emergencies, and how much money is going to our goal savings account. Now you can have multiple goal savings accounts, but for the simplicity, 2 checking, 2 savings. Now he was able to go to HR, go to payroll and say, hey, I want you to split it before I get it. Because before, all the money used to land in one place. So you do a little bit of pre-work. So now when his money comes in, I don't have to say, babe, did you make that transfer to bills?
Yes.
Did you make that transfer to savings? It's like the money comes in and literally budgets itself. It trickles down into those 4 accounts, 2 of which are joint, 2 of which we have separately. And so he gets to split it before we get it. So when I see that he's bought something new, because I was like, we have a little patch of grass, and I'm like, is that a lawnmower?
Where did that come from?
Right. And I'm like, what do we need a lawnmower for? We have this little patch of grass, like our backyard is all paved. So I was just like, you just want to feel like I'm out here with my lawnmower.
Yes. He wants to feel one with nature. Okay.
Yes. But I know one thing, that it either came from his personal adult allowance. It didn't come from our bills account, because we have our bills account separate and we automate our bills from that. It didn't come from our emergency savings. It may have come from his personal savings. So that's what's so great about it. It's like, it gives us autonomy, but it also, we're both contributing to the household. So the split it before you get it method is one of the best ways that you can start budgeting now without the stress of like nickel and diming every little piece. Yes. I love a good spreadsheet. Like I'm the type to be like, wait, where's those 2 pennies? Like I enjoy that, but most people do not. So if you don't enjoy that, consider splitting it before you get it. And if your payroll does not allow you to split up to 4, you can do the split yourself. You can have the money land in one account and have those transfers happen automatically from that one checking account.
I love it. It's another option. And I love the doing it before it hits into the account, because once it goes into the account, I mean, we have tons of stuff you can spend the money on, and you most likely will if it's not automated. And I also love this idea with a spouse. And I have to tell you this quick story. So when my husband and I first got married, I'm the budget freak, right? And he's the spender. His philosophy was like, I make money to spend it. I don't want to die with money. Okay. And I was the complete opposite. And one day I called him. I was budgeting, looking through the account, and I saw that he had gone to a store and spent like $20, right? And I call him and I'm like, were you just at the grocery store? He's like, I'm literally in the parking lot holding the groceries still. Okay. And it's just an example of it's a great way to avoid having conflicting conversations about money, and to be able to automate it keeps you open communication, keeps you on the same page. So it's another great way to strengthen your relationship and not have money become a point of contention.
Yeah. And that really honestly helped to almost erase it. completely.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to wonder. I'm like, I know he didn't forget to make the transfer because it lands automatically. And make sure you opt to not have a debit card attached to your to that bank account. So you can have the debit card attached to your adult, your spending account, because that's what it's there for. But I don't have to wonder like, oh my gosh, he went out. Did he take the wrong debit card? I don't have to wonder if one of us swiped by mistake because there's no debit card there. And we also keep our savings at a separate online only bank account. Yes. And we do that on purpose because we're like, okay, it's going to be in this online only bank account because I don't want to make easy transfers and spend savings money. Because you're looking at least about a 24-hour wait if you're going to transfer from an online only savings account, like an Ally Bank, for example, back to your regular checking account. So those little tweaks make it even better. I'm telling you, the split it before you get it method for budget without budgeting has been just such a game changer, because we really don't talk about money much. Sometimes he'll just say, hey, because if he wants to say, let's just say he wants to use his card for something. He's like, babe, I'm going to go buy groceries, but I'm going to transfer the grocery money from the bills account to my checking account. So that way I can swipe when I go. So I'm not paying with cash. I'm like, that's fine, Right. And then I just tell him like, if you're going to make those transfers, I'm like to put a note. So to your point, Courtney, as I'm going through, I'm like, oh, that was groceries. Oh, that was when we ate out for dinner, So those things are there. So I don't even have to ask. Yeah. Because you don't want to argue over money, if you can help it, because, it's not a good feeling. And so if you can have something in place, it's just the best thing ever.
Well, again, that is great, actionable advice. And guys, if you want to get more details on that, I'm just going to say, go get good with money. I mean, and you could do that by reading Get Good with Money. So I just wanted to, put that in there, guys. Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can the listeners find you online? I assume you're on all the social medias. Mm-hmm. Is it The Budgetnista?
Mm-hmm. I'm The Budgetnista on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. I'm going to start TikToking, I think, although my stepdaughter is like, no, but I think I'm going to TikTok a little. But I'm The Budgetnista
the way
there.
Of the future.
It
got to. Your daughter's like, I don't want you doing the savage dance. Like, don't. I'm like, I won't do that.
I'll just do regular tips right now.
Exactly. Well, you can find Tiffany on Instagram, on Facebook, and you can also find her on her website. I'm going to link it all in the show notes, guys. So if you're driving or you're, folding laundry or whatever, don't have a panic attack. I will make sure that you can find Tiffany online, and also her book on Amazon, anywhere you can purchase books, or her website, getgoodwithmoney.com. Again, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Courtney.